Hi, I'm Dr. Aliabadi. For over 25 years, as an OBGYN, I've helped countless women navigate the challenges of PCOS. I created OV to bring you a scientifically backed solution that supports the symptoms of PCOS with powerful ingredients. OV supports hormone balance, body composition, metabolic support, and beauty from within, giving you a comprehensive approach to supporting your health. It's more than just a supplement. It's a product born from decades of experience and a deep commitment to women's health. Visit OV.com to learn more and start your journey to better health today. That's OVII.com.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Alice from SheMD, and I am so excited to welcome Vivian to your rich BFF. She is an American businesswoman dedicated to making financial literacy accessible to all. She started sharing financial advice on TikTok in 2021 under the moniker Your Rich BFF. So I get excited about every single guest that comes on, but this, to me, is one of the most important conversations that women can have. I grew up in the South, and for women, financial literacy was non-existent. You know, we all had to go to graduate school, but yet we didn't know how to, balance our checkbook. And it wasn't until I started creating companies and becoming a businesswoman myself that I realized how little I knew about anything. I had never done a P&L. I didn't know how to read a balance sheet. I, sort of spent money in a way that wasn't responsible. So I just am so thankful to have you on the podcast. And can you just kind of tell me, I know you started off in finance.
Yeah, so I grew up in the suburbs of Baltimore, Maryland, to Chinese immigrant parents who came here, and all the other immigrant kids will know this. They came with an inexplicably small amount of money, walked uphill both way to school, carried their lunch in some sort of random pail, and had this very hard won, immigrant story. And I felt very grateful because my parents were very much like, you work hard, you do well in school, you will have social and economic mobility in this country. And that's what I was told. So I do all the right things. I am the valedictorian of my high school, big nerd. I end up at U Chicago. Everything's going right for Lil Viv. And ultimately, I end up with a job as a trader on the equities desk at JP Morgan. And suddenly, all of my parents' dreams were realized. They had worked so hard to get to this country. And I, in one generation, had made that leap to high finance, and my life was set. Until it wasn't. There was a wrench thrown in this plan. I thought I was going to work on Wall Street forever. I thought I was going to get rich that way. I initially had a manager who took me under her wing, taught me everything she knew, and it was amazing. And then the head of my desk got let go, and half the team got fired. I got a new manager, and he did not respect me. He didn't like that I was a woman. He didn't like how my nails click-clacked on the keyboard, didn't like how I did my makeup. Would make offhanded, racist, sexist comments that I just knew it wasn't the right fit. And that was really unfortunate. And it made me come to the realization that on this planet, in this life, there are just going to be people who don't see it like how I see it. And they're never, ever going to respect me. They're never going to treat me right. And I needed to find a place where I could be treated right. So I go back, I run to my first manager. She's still my mentor to this day. And I said, I'm quitting. This job sucks. Everything is bad. And she said, don't be an idiot. You don't have another job lined up yet. True. And she ended up helping me find that next job. And there I met some new friends who were all so excited that they now had a Wall Street friend who could help them rebalance their 401k and help them pick a health insurance plan. And I started putting that content online, and very first video, boom. 3 million views, 100,000 followers by the end of the week. And it has led to the craziest, most wild ride of my lifetime. It's such an honor. Nowadays, we've got over 10 million BFFs. I have a New York Times bestselling book, Rich AF. I've got a chart-topping podcast, Networth and Chill, and only more great things to come. And it all happened because of something that I thought was the end of my career.
I love that. You really followed your passion. And like you said, all of a sudden, everything comes in abundance. And listen, I also have a passion to be a country western singer. Like, I can't sing, and there's no way I'm going to do that. So there's also some, like, what are you good at, and what, but if you can pick what you're good at and what you're passionate at, and those things kind of come together, that's magic.
And your true purpose is essentially the intersection of a 4-circle Venn diagram of what are you good at, what do you enjoy, what can you make money doing, and what does the world need? And if you find a thing at the intersection of those 4 circles, and that is your true calling, your true purpose.
I love that. That's amazing. So I know this. Women remain underrepresented in venture capital and investment banking sectors. This is going to blow your mind. Female representation among VC partners. Women constituted approximately 15% of general partners at venture capital firms. Women receive only about 2% of the total venture capital invested in the United States. I think the reason for that is that women start having babies at the same moment that their career starts to explode, and there aren't enough parameters around to help them. Do you think it's getting better? And what can women do to make it better?
I think a lot of companies that do a great job of hiring women talent do a terrible job of retaining women talent because, like you mentioned, the infrastructure is not in place for women to succeed. So when it comes to junior women, it's all about finding a mentor. I was lucky because the only other woman on the desk ended up being my manager, ended up becoming my mentor. And by the way, she happened to be an Asian woman. So not only was I able to really look to her as the women figure in my life, but also to have somebody I can identify with. Dozens of studies that show that, like, when you have someone who you can identify with, who goes to bat for you, who isn't just a mentor, but also a sponsor in the workplace for your success, you go further. And when you look up at the C-suite, it's more men named John than women.
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard to find a mentor. So now, say you make it to kind of like the mid-level. This is when the babies and the families start to happen. And there's actually something called the motherhood penalty and the fatherhood benefit. So if you have 4 people who do the exact same job and you rank them in terms of who gets paid the most, and they all have the same skills, everything, it's fathers with families get paid the most, then single men, then single women, and mothers with families get paid the least, because the unspoken rule is that moms are going to take on all of this unpaid labor to run a family, to have these children, whereas fathers get the warm glow benefit of being a family man,
right,
without any family man responsibilities. And so I think it's really unfortunate we don't provide flexible working arrangements for our mothers. We provide lactation rooms instead of allowing them to just stay home and work from home.
So I always try to think hopefully and what we can do. So what we're doing is, we're completely female founded. 99.9% of our investors are female, but that is important to me as a founder, and maybe it's because I have 5 children, maybe it's because I've been through that, but everybody that works with me with children, picking up your kids is the most important thing. Like, all of these things that we shouldn't have to let go of just because we're a working mom. So I think that maybe women like us who are starting businesses have to fix a system that's broken. Okay, so what was the biggest financial lesson you learned working in Wall Street?
Yeah. Everything in life is negotiable. That's the number one takeaway. I think growing up as like a young Asian woman, I was always told, don't make waves. It's good to be demure. Like, you want to work hard, put your head down, and you'll get noticed. All of the folks I worked with on Wall Street knew their worth and demanded it daily.
That's such a good point. So I've had to learn that when you're a little girl, you're taught, be sweet, be kind, be nice. And by the way, be all of those things. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying it's okay to be direct. It's okay to negotiate. It's okay to to talk about money. A woman listening right now who doesn't know how much money she has in the bank, that, her husband deals with the finances. What can you say to her, and how can she just start?
The vast majority of women die alone. Divorce happens regularly in this country. So at some point, you're going to have to manage your finances. It is so critically important to play an active role in your own finances, because you don't get to be a secondary character in your own life. If you want to understand your money, you need to be the person to sit down every month with your partner and say, let's go over it. You got to know where the money's coming from. You got to know where it's going, what it's being used on. And I find that when you do this, you and your partner actually fight about money less. Oftentimes with women, money is used as not money, but control.
Power. Yeah.
Power. Options. If you want to be able to walk away from a job that no longer serves you, walk away from a bad partner who may be hurting you, and walk into the life that you want, you need to have access, you need to have options, and to have those things, you need to have your own money. Own account, only you control.
That's great advice. I have a few friends who got divorced, and that's exactly what happened. And their husbands had built a huge business while they were married and had them sign things along the way that they didn't understand. So when they got divorced, they got barely anything. And here he had, hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, you think that that's the biggest mistake women make over and over again? Or what do you think that biggest mistake is?
I think oftentimes the biggest mistake someone could make is just choosing a bad partner in the first place. I find that women who have large goals and big aspirations, they date haters at home.
I know.
Why do you want to be with someone who you can't go to when you have a big win? There is enough negativity on this earth. You want to have someone at home who is your number one fan, should see you as a collaboration. Right. And I am so proud of myself for choosing a partner like that, because I know many women who haven't.
I feel so blessed in the same way. And I know he feels so blessed in the same way.
When I started to really take off with my brand, Your Rich BFF, my mom actually told me to not tell my husband how much I was making. And she was
That's generational. That's so
that is generational trauma. She was like, you don't want him to feel less than, because for the first 5 years of our relationship, he made probably 2, 3x, sometimes more than I did every year. And he was the breadwinner. He paid for more of our dinners. He paid for more of our vacations, paid more of our rent. He has always been kind and generous. And he never made me feel less than for making less than. So when the tables turned, I was so excited. I was like, I'm finally at the same playing field. In fact, I'm making more. And my mom was like, don't tell that to him, because he will feel not enough. And I obviously can't keep a secret to save my life. So I immediately told him, and I was like, does that make you feel weird? And he looked me dead in the eye and he said, you don't think I want to get to our vacation home faster? And just him making that joke made me feel like such a weight lifted off of my shoulders of I can be honest with my partner about my success, and he will never feel emasculated because he has his own thing going and he knows what he's worth and he knows that he's successful. And a truly strong man will never, ever feel dimmed by your light. The only people who would ever feel like they would need to make you feel small to feel big are people who are not very big to begin with.
Right. That's so, I love that. Oh my Lord. Can we talk about, this is really important to me. Can we talk about teaching financial literacy in children? What do you think is important to do, and when do you do it?
You got to start them young. Having conversations about money with your kids is so critically important. The people who know how to manage their money are the ones who have those open dialogues with their parents from jump, because then they can actually even feel confident at 21 calling their parent and saying, hey, I know that when we had a car, we did this. What do you recommend for me? Will you come with me to the dealership? And we can decide if I'm leasing or buying or, financing. And when you have that open dialogue early and often, it makes money less scary.
Timeline helps you feel stronger from the inside out, not just in workouts, but in everyday life. We all talk about skincare and sleep, but cellular health, that's the foundation. Timeline's MitoPure targets mitochondrial health, and you feel the difference. One of the things that sold me, MitoPure is the only urolithin A supplement clinically proven to work. It's easy to overlook your cells when thinking about your health, but energy, endurance, muscle recovery, it all starts at the cellular level. It's not about chasing youth, it's about supporting longevity. That's the beauty of Timeline. I noticed it first in my workouts. I had more stamina. I was recovering faster and I didn't feel exhausted after. But even more than that, it helped me with that all-day energy that I'd been missing. The kind that doesn't spike and crash, but just quietly supports you from morning to night. MitoPure fits right in. One scoop in my smoothie or a soft gel with my coffee and done. And the longer I've taken it, the more I notice a difference, not just in how I feel during workouts, but how I feel every day. And it's been a huge help in keeping my nutrition on track, especially on busy days when everything else feels chaotic. So if you're at that place where you want to feel good again, this is such an easy, impactful step to take. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure. Go to timeline.com/SheMD. That's TIMELINE.com/SheMD. Symbiotica has honestly made staying on top of my wellness goals feel effortless, especially during hectic summer weeks when everything else feels out of rhythm. That's when I love doubling down on what makes me feel good. It's hard enough remembering sunscreen, snacks, and summer schedules. Symbiotica is one of those rare wellness staples I actually remember to take because I feel the difference. It's not just another supplement sitting in your cabinet. For me, it's all about small, easy habits that feel good. And Symbiotica is high on the list. Between beach days and barbecues, I sometimes am not able to eat as clean as I want to. And that's exactly when I need my wellness routine to work overtime. Symbiotica helps me stay grounded. The liquid colostrum is my go-to for gut health and a subtle glow. Plus, the vanilla sea salt flavor doesn't feel like I'm taking a supplement. It's a treat. I keep the vitamin C and colostrum right by my coffee. It's literally part of my morning routine now, right after I feed whiskey. That's why it's worked for me. No powders, no scoops, just one little packet a day and you're done. If you're curious, try it out and thank me later. Go to symbiotica.com/SheMD for 20% off your order, plus free shipping. That's CYMBIOTIKA.com/SheMD for 20% off your order, plus free shipping. My husband only lets me have a carry-on even when we go away on vacation for 2 weeks. And so I was so excited to find Vionics because when I wear them, I can work out, I can walk through airports, I can walk through cities, I can go to museums, you name it, and I don't have to think about what's on my feet. I've tried so many shoes that promise comfort, but these are podiatrist designed. You feel the difference the second you put them on. I always say the best way to test a pair of shoes is to take them on a trip. And let me tell you, my Vionics passed the travel test with flying colors. And usually by the end of the day, I'm the person sitting and rubbing my arches, regretting my cute but impractical choice. But not with Vionic. The secret, it's called VioMotion technology, designed by podiatrists to support natural alignment of your body, starting from the ground up. You don't have to break them in, just ready to go support from day one. You can totally try them risk-free with their 30-day wear test. You don't love them? Return them for a full refund. But I have a feeling you'll be planning your next trip around which pair to pack next. If you want to try them out for yourself, use code SheMD at checkout for 15% off your entire order at www.vionicshoes.com when you log into your account. One time only. Vionic shoes, wearable well-being for your feet. That's VIONIC shoes.com. I think my father was completely self-made, came from absolutely nothing, and probably similar story to your, being an immigrant parent. And I think that he was so worried that we wouldn't have ambition and drive if we knew how much money we had. Actually, my friend Greg, she says when her kids say, Mom, I want that. And she would say, you can't have that. And they would say, well, I know we can afford it. And she said, we absolutely could afford it, but I choose not to do that because it's not in our values. How do you instill ambition in those children? I think that's every parent's worst fear, is that they're going to raise children that are not able to take care of themselves, that don't have drive because either they're given too much or they have too much trauma because they have too little.
Yeah, I think it's making a clear delineation of what we means. I fully intend to tell my future kid, like how much money we have, we being mom and dad. Right. Not you guys. You got nothing. You got the allowance I'm giving you to go make sure that your room's clean. And right. I think it's making a clear delineation of like, mom and dad had to work very, very hard for this money. We had to build businesses. We had to show up to work day in and day out. And that is why we can afford a home that looks like this. If you would like to afford a home like this one day, you need to also be making these responsible decisions. You also need to work very hard. You also need to like make sure you're paying attention in school and, making the right connections and thinking about what college you want to go to or whatever. Listen, I think success can look very different these days. We have high school dropouts who are making YouTube channels and saying, I don't need to go to college because I can make millions of dollars every year online. Great. It doesn't matter what that success looks like, but you better have a plan. And I think this is so often the case with high net worth families. They don't give every dollar to their kids. If you want to maintain the lifestyle that you maintained as a child living with your parents, that will not be possible unless you make your own. I think it's instilling the value system of here is how we got that money. And I think that's a really important story to share with them in the first place of like, this is what mom and dad have to do to make this happen. You are going to have to work if you want your standard of living to stay the same.
I think that if you're first generation or you're from maybe a lower income family, you have to work. That's instilled in a really young age. And I think that's why so many really majorly successful people are ones that came from that background. I give my dad as an example.
I think European and Asian countries do a much better job of this. They actually treat children like members of society. In European nations, as a small child, you are expected to sit still at the cafe outside and eat lunch with your family like a normal person, and certainly cater to their level of understanding. But the sooner we can start incorporating them into these daily conversations, the easier it'll be. And I think that's even just like, hey, like mom's going to buy a couple more index funds. Do you want to see what I'm doing? Do you want to see what buttons I'm clicking? This is how the portfolio works. This is what we're invested in and why. Having those conversations just makes it really easy. And then if that's a tradition you've been doing once a month, starting from, age 13, by the time they're 18 and can open up all of these accounts on their own, they're in college, maybe they're able to start investing the money they make by working part-time at the library on their college campus. Like now they have access and they have the knowledge as well, because we talk so much about generational wealth. Like it's not just, oh, here, let me hand you a check for $1 million. Generational wealth is also generational knowledge.
Exactly.
If your parent was an entrepreneur and knew how to start a business, you got knowledge that other people didn't. If your parent was a money manager, you got information that other people didn't. And it put you at an advantage. Mm-hmm. And I think that we need to do our best to pass down the good information that we have to our children.
So another aspect of this is women trying to get back in the workplace after having children. And I think there's such a vast amount of incredibly talented women who have left and that are having a hard time getting back in. Mm-hmm. So when I started my fashion line, I needed somebody to help me on the finance side. I met this woman who ended up being my CFO. She had an MBA. She had so much experience before she had children. And then she chose to stay home with her children, which a lot of women do, which is amazing. Hardest work on the planet. It was such a gift to me, but it was also such a gift to her. If a woman's listening and she wants to get back into the workforce, what advice would you give her?
I think it's about two things. It's leveraging return to work programs for women, in particular, mothers who are taking time to, take care of their families. I think it's an absolute miss not to take advantage of those programs, especially larger corporations. Return to work programs
Okay.
that typically target women who have had careers prior to motherhood and then are trying to get back into the workforce. I know someone who I worked with when I was on Wall Street who had taken a 10-year gap, but before then had been a hedge fund analyst, and they hired her as a desk analyst. After her stint as a stay-at-home mom, she wanted to get back into the workforce, and she got that job because of that type of program. But two, it's about who you know.
Right.
I think if you worked before motherhood, go back on LinkedIn and hit up all of the people that you may have previously worked with and see if any of them are hiring, seeing if any of them have, potential opportunities that you could tap into. You might have to do a little extra legwork to get your foot in the door, and that's always the hardest part. But I think there is a way to effectively do that, and really using other women in your network is one of the easiest ways.
So if somebody only has $50, $100, or they just want to start investing, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. We're going to use technology. You can invest with that sum of money. There's now things called fractional shares. So you can buy a sliver of a slice of a share. You can have $5, $10, $20 and start investing. And one of the easiest ways to do that is going to a robo-advisor. You take a quick quiz about your money goals online. It'll ask questions like, how much do you make? How much do you have? When do you plan on retiring? What's your family picture look like? Where do you live? So they can calculate taxes. And they will build a portfolio that makes sense for you. And the best part is, oftentimes with these robo-advisors, the minimum entry is very, very low. So you can get involved as soon as you have a couple dollars, and they will build out this portfolio on your behalf.
That's amazing. I did not know that. That's amazing. When we started OV, it was important that it was female funded, because women do not get the opportunity to invest at this level. And it was interesting because we had a minimum that you needed, and I had to think really hard about what's that number where a woman didn't need to ask her husband, because that's sort of what we came up against. And I think we need to get away from that. Like you said, if you have your own money and your own bank account, then you make those decisions about what you want to invest in. Your podcast is so great. If you're not listening to it, it is fantastic. Every woman needs to listen to this podcast. It's called Networth and Chill. What was the most surprising thing that you've learned from a guest that just blew your mind?
The way that streaming has changed the music ecosystem, it's become harder and harder for musicians, producers, writers, songwriters to really make a living. The major labels, the same way that like TV studios don't want to take a flyer on something that may not work, like music labels are like, we want to keep making stuff that we know is going to hit.
Right.
But then we don't get the good stuff that could be.
Exactly. We don't have the same creativity and genre bending music. Can you talk to us about the strip method?
Yeah. The strip method is my special proprietary solution to answering my friends' questions of how do I get rich? It's an acronym. S stands for your first step, savings. You want to make sure if you're single, you have 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a high yield savings account that is FDIC insured. If you are head of household, probably 6 to 12 months is a better bet. But it's important to have your emergency fund, because that's what's going to protect you from further issues down the line in case something does happen. T stands for total debt. You need to make it an organized list. I always say use the avalanche method because it's the most efficient and effective way to do it while paying the least in fees. You rank your debt from highest to lowest interest rate, make the minimum payment across everything, and then any additional funds you have for debt pay down, put towards the debt with the highest interest rate. That's going to help you clear your scariest and growiest debt first. R, being retirement, you want to tap into key accounts like a 401k, a 403b, your individual retirement account, the Roth IRA. And all of these accounts are awesome because you are doing something the government wants you to do, so you get a tax benefit for it. Either you get to save on taxes today or save on taxes when you take the money out in retirement. And it's not just enough to put the cash into those accounts. You have to invest. So with invest, I always encourage people to really diversify their portfolios. Do not buy one stock and think that's how you're going to get rich. That is not how that works. You want to invest in a bunch of different stuff. And the easiest way to do that is typically through ETFs or mutual funds that track broader indices or sectors. And I'm a big fan of doing this just because it's an easier way to invest without having to cherry pick. And then last but not least, plan. You got to plan for the future if you want to ride off into the sunset and have a happily ever after. So really think about what would make you happy and then back into what you would need to make that happen. And that's a really effective way to plan for the future versus just being like, oh, well, it would be nice to do this. It's like, no. What is actually a happy life to you? Because it's different for all of us.
Let me just say, no one prepares you for how many stages of womanhood completely wreck your sleep. Pregnancy, you're up every hour. You can't find a comfortable position. Postpartum, forget it. Perimenopause, hello, night sweats. And then there's the mental load that never turns off. I used to think I just had to push through it, that being tired was just part of being a woman. Whether it's night sweats, postpartum recovery, or just plain burnout, regulating your sleep temp is a game changer. That's where the Chill Pad from Sleep Me comes in. The Chill Pad bed cooling system transforms your sleep environment by letting you personalize your mattress temperature from 55 to 115 degrees. You'll fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up feeling like a human again. It works with any mattress, so no major overhaul needed, just better sleep instantly. There's even a dual zone option, so if your partner runs hot and you run cold, no one has to compromise. Visit www.sleep.me/SheMD to get your Chill Pad at 20% off with code SheMD. That's www.sleep.me/SHEMD. Free shipping, free returns, and a 30-night trial for better sleeping at every stage of womanhood. Chill Pad, cool sleeps for unstoppable women. Here's the thing that gets me really fired up. Millions of women are accepting eye fatigue strain and vision changes as just a part of aging. But what if I told you that that's not necessarily true? What if there's actually something you could do about it? Our eyes are on all the time. I notice it when I'm watching my favorite show on my iPad, the eye fatigue, the blurry vision by the afternoon, that tired, dry feeling that just won't go away. If you're nodding in agreement, that's why 1MD Nutrition developed this breakthrough formula called Vision MD. And here's what's incredible. Over 80% of users experience less eye fatigue and strain. Even more impressive, 81% noticed healthier vision clarity. It's a supplement developed by ophthalmologists to support your vision right now. It helps improve visual clarity, reduce eye strain, and even supports the stem cells in your retina. And it's all with just one capsule a day. If you live your life on screens like most of us do, this is for you. They've sold over 500,000 bottles. That tells me thousands of women are already making this switch for better vision and fewer age-related eye issues. Plus, Vision MD has a 90-day money-back guarantee. It's a no-pressure way to see the difference for yourself. Go to 1md.org and use the code SheMD to get 15% off your first order. Your eyes do a lot for you. Vision MD helps return the favor. You know that feeling when you open your makeup drawer and it's just chaos? Products you bought years ago, shades that don't match anymore, and a routine that somehow takes way too long? Yep, been there. If you can relate, then get ready to fall in love with Merit Beauty. You will feel as if someone came into your routine, hit reset, and handed you back the products that actually work. It's clean, effective makeup that's totally foolproof and allows you to get ready in record time. Merit's whole vibe is less is more, which I love because I tend to think as we age, less is more when it comes to makeup. Their Full Flush Balm is this gorgeous cream blush that melts right into your skin. It gives you that fresh, just back from a walk glow. And one of my favorites is their Minimalist Stick. It's a foundation and a concealer in one. Swipe it on, blend with your fingers, and you're done. What I love most is that every product feels effortless. You don't need 12 steps or a YouTube tutorial. You just need a few products that work hard and don't require a lot of time. Perfect for busy mornings or when you just want to feel together without the fuss. So if you're craving a beauty routine that actually fits into your life, it's time to simplify your morning. Head to meritbeauty.com and get their signature makeup bag free with your first order. That's meritbeauty.com. If someone's listening, what percentage of their income should they save?
I would say if you are just budgeting for the first time, and a simple budgeting strategy to utilize is the 50-30-20 method. So 50% of your after-tax take-home pay goes to needs, 30% goes towards wants, and 20% goes towards future you. So that includes saving, debt pay down, and investing. That said, the hope with 50-30-20 is that over time, as you make more money, like 50 and 30 can get smaller and smaller, while the 20% ends up actually becoming a bigger and bigger percentage of what you're doing with your cash. So I would say if you can afford to set aside 20% of your after-tax take home to saving, debt pay down, investing, do that. If you can do more, even better.
One of the biggest pitfalls is lifestyle creep. And I think that I tend to have that. My husband does not. So he's a little bit better at that. Can you explain lifestyle creep and how to avoid it?
Yeah. Lifestyle creep, lifestyle inflation, it is one of the most insidious things that has happened to me, certainly. It's when you start making a little bit more money, so you start spending a little bit more money, and then at the end of the year, you're like, oh shit, why have I not saved any more money? And this happened to me when I was first in New York. My very first year in the city, it was the least I'd ever made in my entire career, but somehow I was still able to set money aside. And I want to say like 2-3 years into my career, I was making meaningfully more money, but somehow wasn't saving any more than I did the very first year. I'm like, what happened? And it's, well, obviously, girlfriend got a nicer apartment. I got a nicer handbag. I started to go out to eat a lot more because I didn't have to cook my sad little, meal every single night. I was getting drinks. I was going out, getting my lashes done, getting my nails done. And I was buying stuff because all of my other girlfriends had it, so I had to have it. It is so easy to convince yourself that the next purchase is finally going to make you happy. It doesn't work that way. One purchase leads to another.
What's your best advice for building real wealth?
Invest. Own stuff. Okay. I think people think you get rich by having a really high-paying job. A really high-paying job is still labor. You want to own stuff. When you own stuff that makes you money, you get to work less while still making more money. And so ownership is incredibly important. That includes things like companies, that includes things like real estate, that includes things like investments. And the easiest, most accessible way, unless you're ready to go buy a home, unless you're ready to go buy a business, is to invest in the stock market. You can't afford to not invest. Our parents were able to save their way to retirement. We need to invest our way there.
Right. Oh, that's great. And what's something about wealth building that you learned later in life that you wish you had known earlier?
This was a piece of advice my mentor gave me. You can only save as much as you earn, but you can always earn more money. We talk so much about scrimping and saving and cutting out the avocado toast, when in reality, it's so much easier to ask for a $5,000 raise than it is to cut out $5,000 worth of expenses out of your life. Having money isn't about just surviving. It's about thriving, about enjoying your life. And so instead of having the narrative be women are shopaholics and you need to spend less, why don't we encourage everyone to ask for a raise every year?
That's great. I'm telling you, this is one of my favorite episodes because every single thing that comes out of your mouth is just little gold nuggets that I want every woman to hear. You wrote Rich AF to help people shift their money mindset. What's one piece of advice? What's one piece of advice from the book that you wish every woman would know?
I think I mentioned this in one of the earliest chapters, and I say that rich people are apex predators. They do not consider each other competition. They see each other as help. So I always worried as a woman, and a woman who had no money at 22, that I would have to work really, really hard and be the only girl. There could only be one token smart girl. There could only be one token successful girl on my desk. That's just not true. We oftentimes pit ourselves against each other, especially other women, because we feel like there's only room enough for one of us to succeed. Mm-hmm. And that's not true. When you are an apex predator, you are not worried about other apex predators. You only understand that like my needs need to be met and that I can succeed, especially if we help each other. So I would just say, don't look at women as your competition. Think of them as your team. Think of them as teammates, and you will be able to go farther with a crew than you would go alone. And I've noticed this, like rich people are always like, oh, I have a great tax guy. You have to use my tax guy. I'm a member of this club. I'll sponsor you to get in. And it's like, they're always helping each other because every time they do, it's a little chip that they can put in their back pocket. So when they need a favor, they can call it in. And that type of, I guess, supportive economy is not something that I've seen in other communities. And I think we should start really implementing it.
I could not agree more with that. And I think that I have built successful businesses because of that group of women. You know, some of my best friends have started companies. Candace started Sprinkles. Greg started Beauty Counter. And we're all with each other, you know, helping each other, giving each other advice, lifting each other up. And we do that for younger women too, because as we lift each other up, we lift up as women. And that's how we're going to change this 12% that, you know, that we're talking about. So Vivian, thank you so much for being here. I just have been such a fan for so long. And I think this message is so important. There are a lot of resources. You're one of the best, for women. And I think just the message is use them. Will you just, for our listeners, tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah. Everyone, you can find me at Your Rich BFF across all social media. You can get my book wherever books are sold. It's titled Rich AF, very simple, very short. And for my podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts, you can get it. It's called Networth and Chill.
Vivian, this was such an insightful conversation. And I know so many women and men, if you're listening, are going to learn so much from it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us today on SheMD.
If you want to own your own health, a good place to start is by following us on social media at SheMD Podcast and by subscribing to our show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
For takeaways from today's episode, visit our website, shemdpodcast.com. We'll see you next time on SheMD. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for a physician's medical advice. You should regularly consult your medical provider in matters relating to your own health. Even though we share our honest beliefs on SheMD, some of the products and services we discuss may involve sponsorships or paid advertising.